Hi everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative. We're going to do something a little different today. We have in the past, and I think I had done a video on it, we had worked with sawdust. I had done a skull. Now, I can't say 100% sure if it was a video that I had actually done on my YouTube channel or not, but I have worked with sawdust before, shavings if you will, and put them into a resin piece. Well, I decided what I wanted to do was do a piece again. So if I don't have that video up that I did with the skull, fair enough. What we're going to do is we're going to use this geode mold, coaster mold, and we're going to use some sawdust in it. Now, I did something a little bit different with this. So let me just get my mold off to the side, because before we can even get going on doing this piece, and I'm trying to think, I got to get my mold to a flat surface here. Okay, done and done. I spray painted some of this, so you'll see it in here. We're going to get a piece of wax paper. Tear that off, put that down. I'll get rid of that momentarily. So I have recently bought some Pebeo spray paint. I wanted to give it a go. Michael's has it on sale. My store is selling it for $5, and I know there's other stores I've been to, they're selling it for $10. So I can't speak, there's only been 2 stores I've been into. Anyway, having said that, so I just want to get this out of my container. This pot from a plant came in very handy for that, putting it in. So anyway, I used I'll call it a wine color, as you can see. I used a clear coat with sparkles in it, and I used a pearl pink on this. And I just very carefully, and from about 12 to 18 inches above, so I had a box out in the garage. I obviously didn't do this in here. You didn't get to see me. Anyways, I took some shavings out of a bag. I put them into a cardboard box I had out in the garage. I covered the top of the cardboard box with some paper towel to keep the paint sort of from going all over the place. And then very carefully, and as I say, from about 12 or 18 inches above, I just very carefully spray painted this. And then I mixed it up with my hands. When I say that, like I took it and just, sort of swirled it around like this. And then did it some more. And I did that about 4 or 5 times, just because I wanted to have a little bit of color on it. And 2, I wanted to see when we do this into the resin, if it will hold the color and it won't like bleed all over the place. So we're going to need to let this dry for a little bit, because my garage is damp due to the weather I'm having. So I just want to give this, like an hour or so to just dry up a little bit. And then I want to use it in the coaster. Now, I believe I have a lot more than what I need here. And I'm not 100% sure how I want to do this. So initially my thought was, well, let's just mix it into the resin and then pour it into the container. I would want to test just a little bit of this in resin just to make sure the color is going to hold, because I don't want the color, a little bit of color running wouldn't bother me, but I don't want a lot. So we're going to have to test that out. And you'll notice that some is a little bit redder than others, which is brilliant. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to be putting in some of this allure glitter. Now, you're looking at this going, but Natalie, these colors are totally off from what you're doing here. And I appreciate that, and I get that, but I want to add some of this glitter in and amongst the coaster as well, just to see how it's going to look, and just to give this a little bit more. And we'll be able to tell when we're done, again, whether or not I should have done it, and whether or not we would have been better off just leaving it, because you may not be able to see it. I'm not sure, but you can see the sparkle on it, which is kind of cool for this. And I just thought it'd be a neat little project to attempt to see how this is going to work out. So I'm just going to let this dry up for about an hour. And then I'm going to figure out approximately how much resin I'm going to need to make up, because obviously we know that we won't need as much resin just because of the fact that we've got this as a filler. And yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what that's going to take. And I may just have to do a, take the diameter of it and go to one of the websites and see, so this is my diameter and how much am I going to need. I'm not going to try and figure it out per section. I'm going to figure out as an overall. That's the plan. That's what we're going to be doing. And once I can move on, we will come back and I will have this put aside and I'll put it back into my little container there, and then we'll see what we can do and see how it's going to come out. But it was just, I got an idea. I'm running with it. We'll see how it turns out at the end of the day. When I'm ready to get to mixing and pouring, we'll be back. I have my resin all ready to go. I once again have mixed it by hand. I have some extra cups here because we are going to mix this sawdust into other containers, and then we're going to pour it in, and we'll put some more sparkles in with it. So we'll do it that way. I want to make sure it gets covered properly, and I know it's going to introduce air bubbles. I'm not, going to fool myself on that one. I figure we'll do a little bit at a time and go from there. So I just want to do a bit at a time. And at the same time, being fully aware of the need to not, drag this out for hours on end, because we know things are going to heat up as we go along, right? So we'll put some of this in here. We'll get the sprinkles in it first. I'm going to have to work on making some projects that aren't so glittery. But I guess because I'm doing it, I have the ability. But I've always said, I appreciate that not everyone's into the glitz and glitter as I am. And that's fine. Now, the other thing that'll be a bit of a bonus with this is the fact that the sawdust will help hold the glitter, I think, in check. It won't allow it to sink right down to the bottom because it's going to be mixed in with it. So we'll just have to see how this goes, and if I put too much glitter in, which I kind of think, yeah, I might have done, but that's okay. Put a little bit more, and we'll put some more resin in. So this is all we're going to be doing. We're just going to be mixing back and forth, and doing our best to make an interesting piece. And the other reason I sort of want to take my time with this is that I could mix the sawdust in all together and then pour it out. But I'm feeling like if I do it this way, it might be better. But we'll have to see. I mean, we may have to just, add, like maybe do one like this. And I want to make sure, because I've only got so much sawdust, right? Maybe doing it all at once would be a better way, but we'll see. Or do one by itself and then do the rest together. Because then I can divide it out. Do a little bit into one to the other, and so on and so forth. Now, I did use my calculator online, and it said to make about 207 mils of resin for this, and that didn't take into consideration I was putting in anything into it. So I thought, just make up what they say to make up, and if there's leftover, there's leftover. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray just a little bit of alcohol in, just because we are dealing with something that is going to create bubbles. And then I'm going to sort of help the sawdust come out. And then we will balance it out. And when I say that, I mean just move it around so that we don't have. And the other reason I want to balance it out is the fact that it's, you know, we've got this sawdust in here, and I might have to take some of it out in order to have it be level, because, you know, this is going to stick up, as you can see. So I want to spread it out as best I can. And in some cases I'll just bring out the resin and the sparkle and not any more of the sawdust. Or yeah, the sawdust, right? Or shavings, or call them what you will. And then I want to make sure I try and, you know, set them down. Now, I had thought about putting this on the heat mat, and then decided no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, we may have to dome this a little bit, which kind of takes away from it. Or I have to think about a piece like this that's sticking up, maybe cut it. All right, so that's pretty full. So we could have, and I may have to move some pieces around just because, and or pull them out and cut them down, which will take me some time, and I will not do that on camera because you're not going to want to see me take these little pieces and cut them down. That'll be boring and very, I think, time consuming, so I don't want to do that. Okay. And obviously I'll be coming back in and around to this to with my lighter, just to get rid of any bubbles that pop to the top. And then I'll also have to be extremely careful of doing that, because we don't want to light the shavings on fire, right? We don't want to light them up, so we want to be really careful if we do that. So the optimum would probably be to use the isopropyl alcohol to do that, right? To work on getting rid of any air bubbles. Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll do part in one container and part in another. So we don't need to separate that out anymore. I'm going to have to go a little heavy-handed on the glitter in both of them, right? Because I did in those two, so we shouldn't shy away on the other two. Clean up my glitz fiasco later. Should have put a wooden stir stick in here for the, so I don't get, because I've got glitz all over my stick now. And we know how glitter likes to stick on everything. I think I need a little bit more in that. So I thought it was kind of a neat idea to come up with, to do this with the shavings, because I wanted, you know, I could have just done them plain and not put any coloring on them whatsoever, but I just, that seemed kind of boring to me. I'd been, you know, sort of staring at it going, do we really want to keep this just plain, or do we want to add some color to the shavings? And I thought color and a little bit of sparkle would be kind of interesting. And I, you know, you might have wanted to have used a deeper mold, which is fair, right? Because how are you going to get this to sit flat now? And that's why I'm thinking, you know, I might have to spend a little bit of time and you know, cut down these pieces. Or maybe what I do is I use it in a different way. Instead of using it as coaster mold, I use it as something else. I could use parts of it in another piece. I could maybe see about putting it again in another piece and then using it as a wall hanging. So I'm not going to just sort of look at it and think, well, this was a bad idea. I think it's a cool idea. And I also think it lends itself to you getting potentially some ideas on what would you do with this piece. Now I do want to get some more sawdust into the second piece that I've poured. Now the other thing I could see maybe doing, and I am not sure how I would do it, but would be to see if I can't get these shavings a little more fine. I'm not, again, I don't know how I would best do that. I don't have, I can't off the top of my head think of anything I could use to make these shavings smaller. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on, you know, an idea for that. So if you have, you know, if you want to put in the comments below how you could see me shredding these better, that would be cool. I'd appreciate that. So I think those are about even. I think this needs some more shavings. And actually, if this works out half decently, I actually have my hand mold that I wouldn't mind, again, coloring my shavings and then putting them into the hand. Okay. So it's a long weekend here in Canada. Our Victoria Day weekend is almost upon us. And I know it's Memorial Day weekend in the States the following weekend. And I actually have family coming up from the States for their long weekend. And I'll get to spend some time with all of my family. So that's kind of nice. We haven't had a really, with my siblings anyways, we really haven't had a family get together since my mom passed away. So I am looking forward to actually, you know, seeing my siblings and getting to spend a little bit of time with them on the Memorial Day weekend for you guys in the States. So that'll be nice. And I'm curious for those of you in Canada, and I know I love those of you here in Canada. They're letting me know you're from Canada, and I appreciate you appreciating me and this channel. So thank you very much for that. And what I think is great is with us, you know, sort of being challenged sometimes finding products that we want here in Canada, it's always nice to have people from other parts of Canada who can say, oh yeah, you know, I found this here, or I'm looking for this, and we can help one another find things in the event that we aren't buying something from the States, or we just haven't found what we're looking for. So that's brilliant in and of itself. I do appreciate that. The other thing I want to say is that for those of you who commented about the ceramic resin I used and the fact that I was using paint that in my piece versus painting my piece with the paint, say that 10 times fast. Thank you for that. You know what? It's one of those, I didn't even consider it. I figured it was pigment, and I maybe needed to know better, but again, I was going with, oh, they've included pigment with this, and yeah. So, and the majority of you said, Natalie, that would be paint for after the project's done. So I appreciated that. I took it all in good stride because I thought, yep, there you go. They're in a paint container. Think about that. And it never even dawned on me that that's what that was meant for. So yes, I totally appreciated your comments and went, yep, okay. So the container are actually sitting over here to the side, and I don't know what I'm going to get around to painting with them, but now I have even more paint. So we'll have to see what I can make do. Now, I didn't spray any isopropyl alcohol in these two. So again, I may be dealing with some air bubbles. We'll spray what we can of the top here. And it's interesting because I'm appreciating the fact that my paint, my spray paint hasn't, I mean, it's staying on the shavings. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that word, shavings, which is great. And that's what I wanted. So I'm glad to see that. Will all spray paints do that? I don't know. That I don't know. So we have about 50 mils of resin left, but it does have the shavings in. So if we were to take the shavings out, what, maybe 30? And whatever's left in this. The other thing that may have been helpful is if I could have just let the shavings sit. Like these sort of might, as they get damp, you know, soften up into the resin and not stand out as much. So maybe we should just let it be and see how it ends up at the end of the day. I've got to turn my heater off. I'm really warming up now. Yeah. So here we have it. And I'm going to use my Old Faithful that I've got over here, my mini tea light. I seriously have to find something else to start putting leftovers in. I just love that little piece. I guess what I could do is I have, well, those, I was going to say I could make some earrings out of them, but the sawdust is going to stick out of them way too much. Yeah, so there we go. I think that looks pretty good. And I'm not going to, I was thinking, you know, should I put it right up to the top with the resin? And it isn't quite, like I don't really have it right up to the top in any of these pieces. It's close though. And I know my other one's going to be warming up. All the silence, eh? Nothing running. Natalie's not talking. So I'm looking at this all of a sudden. I'm thinking, boy, this looks like pizza. How my imagination works. It's amazing, eh? All right. So just get the last of the resin out of this, and then we'll let it go and set up. And I'll clean off my stick because I don't want all that glitter getting stuck on it. clean that off with alcohol in a minute. Alrighty. So let's just do a little spritzy spritz. Yeah, I'll maybe see about going over it. I think we're pretty good with being level to the top. I don't feel like I really need any extra in it anywhere. And I think I want to see if I can't fill in this little jug of mine with the leftovers. So we'll let that just sort of, we'll have to find something to cover it up with. And then we'll just slowly put this in here and see how it, oops. Yeah, get these big pieces of sawdust, and it's like, so how's this going to flow for you, Natalie? Here, we're going to have to stick this down. This may not have been the best idea. And I may very well have air bubbles in this. You almost have to get as much of the sawdust as you do the resin, so it helps it flow down the side. Yeah, this may not, this I'm thinking may have been a bad idea. Anyone else thinking that? But can't stop now, can we? So I want to get some resin in there so it can get flowing down and around and fill it in. If it's got, being what it's used for, it won't matter if it's got air bubbles. I don't really want tons in there, but it really won't matter if we do have air bubbles in it. But it'll be, again, it gives you some ideas, right? And I'm going to have to put my thinking cap on how I can shred this stuff down a bit more. Like there's absolutely nothing popping into my head right now. But I definitely think there's got to be something I can do. Now, the one thing I want to do is drop this. So that we get as much as, you know, air bubbles out of it as possible, right? And we will spray it because I can see some air bubbles in it. And it's also starting to warm up a little bit. It's interesting when I've been doing my videos and I have those spots of just dead air, I think to myself about like cutting out what you're watching me do, but I'm not sure that's the best idea. Because then you may think like, okay, she sped through it, but what have we missed? And I still haven't figured out how to fast forward on the program I use. I should look that up too, so that you don't have to sit and watch stuff like this, eh? There's that Canadian saying again, eh? I do like it. Try not to use it much anymore, but that's what we Canadians do. All right, that's all I'm going to put in that, because I don't think it needs any more. I'm trying to find now I'm throwing everything all over the place. All right, put that there. I'll let that sit. We'll spray that. Now I just need to find something else laying around here that's has the potential of, and I think I might know what to do, so trying not to get stuff all over the place. Now I do have, and I think I am going to, I have off to the side here some resin dye, and everything's dripping off of my cup. So let me get that out of the way. Let me get that out of the way so I can maneuver this pot down here. Things off to the side. Put that there. So I have this resin dye by Magic Resin. We're going to put a little bit of this in here, and then I am going to make, I wonder if I don't know if I have enough for my heart, but that's okay. You know what? That's going to be okay. I'm just going to put a couple of drops of this. What is this? This is sapphire blue. And we're just going to mix that in a little bit. You won't really be able to see, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure how much of the coloring you'll see now in the sawdust, but, or shavings, whatever you prefer to call them. Well, I'm gonna trust my luck on the heart. Try not to put too much in, knowing what happened with one of the pieces I made. And it may not work out very well just because it is, and it's got the sawdust in it, and we've got these crevices in here. So we're just kind of see about filtering it down. I had more than I thought I did. Okay. Could have done the other heart, but we're going to do this piece instead. That has more in it than I want, so let's get some of that out. Because I could almost see just topping this up with UV resin, just to cover it and give it a bit of a dome. Okay, as we can carry on with what I'm doing. Yeah, so I'm just gonna throw this down, we'll do this, and then we should be good. If I'd had a container more open than this pot here, it probably would have been okay. Oh well, we're just going to have some extra pieces. More to play with at the end of the day. And anything I have left after this, I've got a little container, silicone container over here at the side that we can put and let it drip out of. And I may have to get my heat gun and warm this up to spread it out, just because it is thickening up now. All right, I don't think I'm gonna get much more out of this. All right, that off to the side. Excuse me for right now. And let's just heat this up a little bit so we can get it spread out, so at least I have it all in there. All right. Definitely want it around the side of that. Yeah, I would like to, like, for some of these molds, because they're not very thick, I'd really like to find a way of making those pieces smaller. Now, actually, an idea just did come into my head, but I don't know how it's going to work. I have to get something down from one of my shelves, and I'll show you what I just sort of flew into my head now that may help. I'm not sure, but I can try it on those leftover pieces. Alrighty, so there we go. That's where we will leave things, and we will come back when it's time to take this out. I will, as usual, I'll sort of stick with it and you know, do the best I can as far as air bubbles go. I will come back and I will show you what I was thinking of as far as how I can maybe shred this stuff up a little bit more, because we know we're going to have it. It's going to be sticking out, some of these pieces, and I could take my scissors and cut them down, but hey, let's just see how it turns out, and hopefully it's given you some ideas. And yeah, I kind of like this concept. And yeah, we might have to use it, but in a thicker mold that we can, you know, put a layer down and then cover it with, you know, another coat of just resin without the sawdust in it. All right, I'm going to stop playing. I'm going to let you go, and we will be back when it's time to take these interesting pieces out of their molds. It's time to take our pieces out of the mold. There's a couple of pieces I did put some light wish UV resin on in blue. So this piece I did here. And for this piece, I just used a clear resin on it just to cover up. Now, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of sanding on some of these pieces, but I'm not going to do it on all of them. So I'm going to put on my pretty pink hand glove to get these out, just because these have just been done. And we'll see how it looks. And I'm going to end up putting this in the window just so that I can cure up the UV resin more. But yeah, get your hand out of the way. So we have that. Oh, that just darkens it up. So I love that we've got this one random little piece that doesn't have any dye on it. Or I shouldn't say it's not dye, it's paint. But I like how that turned out. I think that looks kind of cool. So I will definitely set this. Now I do have, right here I have one little piece sticking up, so I do want to sand that down very carefully, and then I'll put another coating on this later. But I think that looks kind of cool. So we'll put that down. Oh, and I said I was going to pull down what I thought might shred up the sawdust a little bit more, or these you call it, oh my gosh. They might get this sawdust up a little bit more, but these scissors will not work on that. So this was my idea, but I figure there's got to be something I've got around that will allow me to do that. So I have to think about that a little bit more. So sad. Sawdust. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to start putting the words up in front of me. What is this again? You guys must just love it when I can't think of what my words are. Screaming at me. Or just gently, Natalie, this is what it is. All right. So I'm impressed with how that came out. The bottom's a little wobbly on it. So it does need a little bit of sanding down, but again, this will go in the window so it can get some UV light to it, but that didn't turn out too badly. Now, it doesn't have the shine I would expect on it, and I thought I had washed this out. So this may be one of those molds, because I've used it so often, that the shine's just coming off the inside of it now, which is quite possible. But that didn't turn out too badly, considering I was concerned about it when I was putting it in. So I'm actually impressed that we did as well as we did on that. But yeah, that definitely doesn't have the shine that I think it used to way back in the day. And I'm trying to see if I've got one over here that... Now that's clear. Yeah. I don't know if I can get another just small, because I think I got these came in a set of 3, I think. So I don't know if I could get another small, because I love this mold. Because the nice, and why I like it so much is the fact that it's small enough that if you have made too much resin, it's a quick go-to. So that's why I like using it. That's why I like it, period, is because it's not a big piece, but I can get, I can create with it. Okay, so these 2 pieces for sure, I'm not putting any UV resin on them right now. What I want to do is I do want to sand these down, and then I'm going to put some UV resin on the top of them. And I'll have to put these on something, because obviously if I go to put the UV resin on, unless those are perfectly flat, when I say flat, right, level, we're going to have an issue with the UV resin going one way or the other. So I'm going to sand those down, and then I have rice I can put them into in order to... The battery died. I didn't even look to see how much power I had left on it. Anyway, I will be putting these probably into the rice so I can level it up, and then put the UV resin on top of that. And the same with this heart. So there we have those 2. So yeah, I want to sand these down, because if I want to make these into pendants or a really giant ring, I need to sand that down and then put some UV on top of it. So that's what I'm going to do with those 2. And I think they turned out nicely. Now, what would be cool would be to, I'm thinking if I had some gold and had some way of like putting this down into it. So I'm thinking like a sponge, to have like gold on a sponge, and then just very carefully push this into it, but not really hard, because I don't want to get it anywhere else. So we can define the tips of this. Because it's very pretty, but it is hard to see sort of the design in using this particular color. It'd be cool to, be able to dot that. Now I might be able to do that with the chrome marker, but I just wonder if we put some gold on a sponge and then dot it around it, which might be something to give a go to. So now let's get to the main part, what this is all about. So my pizza, I've actually going to use, I'm calling it a pizza coaster because it reminds me of pizza. I don't know about you guys, but it reminds me of pizza. Now, we have the sort of quandary of this isn't flat, right? And I have some pieces sticking up, but I think we'd still be okay to put cups in one. I have my coffee cup over here, but I don't really want to put it on. But I'm just showing you, you know, that we could still put things on it. You just have to be a little more aware of if you were going to be putting something on top of it. Right? Like you'd have to be like, this isn't a good example. These aren't a good example at all, but I don't know about sanding this down, but let's just get it out. Again, even if I were to sand it down, I would have to take it out of the mold. But let's see how we turned out. And this is a Craftsmart mold from Michaels, one of the ones they've had on sale. I paid $7 for this, I think. All right, let's just do it like this so we can maybe get it out with less fuss, eh? You can definitely tell which two go together. Can you see it? I remember Sesame Street, and I'm again dating myself, where which one of these doesn't belong, but if you can tell, these two definitely have a lot more sparkle than these two have. That's for sure. Like it's so obvious. So obvious who's got the sparkle in all of this. Anyways, that's okay. I mean, you got to admit, it's sort of cut into the shape of pizzas, and the sawdust makes me think of like the meat that goes on the top of it. I don't get out much, okay? I'm just saying. There. So again, as I had mentioned, with a piece like this, I think there's opportunity to do more with it. I'm just going to grab my black to see if this will stand out more for us. Like, I'm always thinking, like I say, I don't like sort of general. I like things that are different. So I look at it and think, what can I do with this if it's not going to work from a coaster perspective? Like, how can I even maneuver it somehow like this? And then you could even do something in the middle and, you know, have them all joined together. So it was just one piece versus 4 separate pieces. And then it lends itself to being able to put something bigger on it. And again, you know, these are ideas that are coming to me just randomly as I'm looking at things. So I'm just trying to see what I've got. So I do have something we can put on here. And a lot, like I say, the reason I do this is to give you guys ideas as well. And I don't know if there are other channels out there where the people are actually, you know, doing this and making suggestions on things. So if we did something like this, right, then we have technically a, you know, something to put something on top of. And I kind of like that idea, you know. I like the idea that it's off center. I might just do that. I might just see about joining it. And we could even make it further apart. Right? I don't know if that'll work the way I want it to, but yeah. So something like that. Something simple. And we could use a 5-minute epoxy to, you know, put these all together. You could put resin or something in the center of it. I don't have anything off the top of my head, I don't have anything that I can think of. But you wouldn't actually, if you didn't even want to, you wouldn't even have to put something in the center there. But you could do like that. And then use it for putting a plate on top of it. I think that looks really cool and very pretty. And because it's a plate and because it's sort of spread out over the 4 pieces, it doesn't matter that we've got the shavings, sawdust, sticking up, because the plate's wide enough that it's going to balance itself okay on that. And the other thing we could do in order to sort of highlight this would be to go around the edges with a chrome marker. I kind of like that concept, you know. Okay, so we're done. I like this idea. I really like this a lot. I think this has a lot of potential of having a very uniquely shaped platter to put things on top of. Again, something could go in the center here. Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool idea. And we could, as I mentioned, go around the edges because it's not too bad. We have a bit of space in here to play with the chrome marker to get it in here. Now, the other thing you could do would take some time would be to use washi tape, like a fine washi tape, and go in and around here as well. I would use a glue to hold that down, and then I would go over top it with resin just to seal it in. You could do that, and you could do that along the sides as well in here. Now, the other thing we could do, because you know what I'm like with my bling, and it's handy here, and this would take a little bit of time. I wouldn't necessarily use this one, but let's just open this up. If you wanted to sparkle it up, and we're willing to take the time, you could do something like that and really jazz it up. And really jazz it up. So, I've given you, I think, plenty of ideas that if you got this mold, have this mold, what you could potentially do with it. You could technically make that center as big as you wanted to. And you got platter. I like it. I still have to get my plate done. I haven't, I need to, and I want to put a coat of resin on top of it, and I'll have to brush that on. And I think for the bottom, I know, getting totally off topic, that I'll put a piece of foam or something on the bottom of that just to cover that up. I might paint it first and then do that, but again, another one of my works in progress. All right, that's it. That's all we're going to do. I hope you found this useful. Let me know what you think about this coaster. Not making it as a coaster, but as a platter idea for something like this, because I think that'd be kind of cool. And then, as mentioned, then the sawdust sticking up doesn't matter. It won't matter. I think that's kind of a cool idea. I'm going to sit here and stare at it for a while. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Comment below what you think of this idea, and if you would do something even more different with it. I am glad, though, that the sawdust has kept the coloring. That's kind of cool as well. So if you did this just clear and then put something on the back to even highlight that more, that would be very interesting. And I think the glitter adds. And interestingly enough, too, you can see it, but not see it. If that sentence made any sense to you, I know it didn't, but it did to me. So I guess that's all that matters sometimes, is that the people making the statements make sense to them. I'm not even going to go down that road right now. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.